So the information we will cover today is we will review the RFP in its entirety and highlight a few things from it, answer your questions that you may have regarding it. In addition to the Part 3 narrative, which incorporates your response, what you will be responding to in your applications, and then we will also look at the class plan and budget workbook. So all those things we will try and cover today in the next hour. So let's begin. The purpose of the RFP is to really to administer adult education funds to programs that are offering English for speakers of other languages, as well as adult basic education services to adults. There are a host of other purposes that are listed in the RFP and looking to serve family members and those who need to improve their English, reading, writing, speaking. So really all the subject areas that lead to an adult high school equivalency diploma or adult diploma program, as well as the things that help our students gain more English skills, more English. So you can read in its entirety those things, but the purpose is not different than what we have been funding in the past. The priorities for this funding is bolded here. We're looking for programs that are presenting innovation in their program design and service delivery. That can mean anything in regards to the type of service that you're, the way that you deliver your services, the way that you are inclusive or attending to a particular population or target group. So innovation can be pretty much anything. Collaboration as well, looking for people who partner with our other WIOA partners like career centers, Mass Rehab, Mass Association for the Blind, DTA, so that we can provide seamless access of services to many that meet the needs of many of our students. Past effectiveness, we'll get into that a bit, but our program, you must have run an adult education program and provided some services in the past and be able to show how your program has been effective. So our Title II funds are for supplementing programs that have already been in effect. It could be ESOL, it could be ABE. We also are looking to lower the wait list. So if you have an active wait list, or you can show how there's a significant need for services in your area, that's always a priority. I will speak to the serving hard to serve populations, and it's actually, a more equitable way of saying this is it's serving people who have multiple challenges. Not that they are hard to serve, but their challenges can produce barriers for them. So we're looking at changing our language and how we speak about people all the time. Integration of digital literacy, digital learning and delivery models. Everyone knows from this past year how important it is for us to serve our students in a variety of ways and continue to serve them even when face-to-face options are not the best way. But we are definitely looking for a variety of services, face-to-face, in-person, hybrid, that whole nine. A design to serve a minimum of 50 participants. This is a priority. It is not a requirement, but it is something that we are looking for in this grant. So eligibility, I will pause for questions right after this slide. Eligibility, these are the criteria for being eligible program. This grant is specifically targeted to programs that are currently not funded by the department. So if your program is currently funded by us in adult ed and you're looking to expand or add another site to your program, this is not the grant for that. We have built capacity in those ways and may look to do that with our currently funded programs, but not through this particular RFP. Okay, so this is to bring on new programs that are not currently funded. They could have been funded in the past, but not currently. Okay, so it lists the entities that are eligible for services. All right, so we will pause, and Yola, if there are any questions in the chat that have been asked, you can let me know at any time, and then please stop and ask any questions now that you have about eligibility or the purpose or priorities. Take a minute if you want to type something in the chat, otherwise we will move on. Okay, I don't see any questions yet, so we will keep going. So funding, this grant is going to, we anticipate having about $1 million available to fund these new adult education programs throughout the state. So differently than how we compete our major competition, everyone will be, who submits an application will be competing against each other, no matter where you are located in the state. Usually we compete regionally, but for this, we're not doing that. So grants will be based on an academic year that we typically look for instruction to happen between September and June. If you're offering a different schedule, then September to June, and it may be September to May, the end of May, but you know, if it's significantly different than September to June, then you need to tell us the rationale for that. We are funding our programs on a cost per student enrollment model, which we say we are anticipating. People suggest a range between $2,800 per student up to $3,500 per student. And you can calculate how what the funding amount will be. If you are proposing a program that has a higher cost per student enrollment than $3,500, then you would need to justify that as well. Sometimes we have had people come in lower than the range, like their cost per is lower, that's allowable, but we also want to know like how you're able to make that happen. You might have other resources or things that bring down costs, which is fine. We will give preference to agencies that are proposing to serve a minimum of 50 students. Again, that is a preference, but we will consider programs that do serve smaller numbers, and you will need to justify and kind of give a rationale for your program design and how that meets the needs of adult learners. I think those are all the things that I have noted. Fund use. All the funds must be used in accordance with our Massachusetts policies for effective adult education. This is a live link in the RFP. You will definitely want to pay attention to the policies, review the policies that we have posted, and make sure that all services are in alignment with that. Adult education funds must serve students who are at least 16 years of age. They're not enrolled or required to be enrolled in public education, or do not have a secondary diploma or high school equivalency. We also serve students who are basic skills deficient or have English language learners. So if you have a student who does have a credential, but they are testing below grade level or below skills level, those students can also be served in our adult education program. Grant awards will be determined by the applicant's demonstrated capacity to deliver the services that they're proposing. Calc funding will be based on approved set of services in the program. So if you are proposing to do remote instruction and face-to-face instruction, and we fund it, then those are the services that we expect to exist throughout the length of the grant, or any other unique innovations that you're proposing. So what we fund is to stay, must go throughout the life of the grant. If I will say that if you do propose to change anything, if you are accepted and get funding, we do have, there is a way to change your services upon approval of the department. So if you need to change something, you can propose it, and upon approval, that will be acceptable. Fund use. Our grant funds are our state funds match our federal funds as well as far as policy and procedures, primarily, typically. So for this grant, we have a federal cap that only 5% of grant funds can be used for administrative costs. That's related to planning or administration or carrying out other requirements, including professional development. We know that that is hard for many of our programs. So we do have a process that a program can apply for up to 25% of the grant funds being used for administrative costs. So this is just in your thinking and in your future planning. You will not have to justify any of this in the application process, but if you're awarded, a negotiation would need to be done if you're looking to exceed 5% and but not exceed 25% of administrative costs. In addition, there is a way for people to apply for indirect costs, which covers things like your building costs, your electricity, things that are general funds that go into running a program. Those are also, those can also, you can also apply for that to have those funds allocated for those expenses. Adult Education Services is a restricted rate program that is subject to statutory supplement, not supplant restrictions, which means that our grant funds are to supplement what you are already doing and not to fund necessarily what you are doing. Nevertheless, and for this application, I would say, if you are interested in applying for our grant funds, please do not hesitate to apply and write your best proposal. I will pause now and see if there's any questions about fund use or, fund use. Usually there are a couple questions about that. There's a question in the chat. It says, if our organization is not awarded for the grant, can we apply for the adult ed designation and self-fund the program? Mr. Danby, I don't know if you can say more about that. I'm not exactly sure what that means.
Sure. So if we apply for this grant and we do not get the grant, but we want to still have this program in our organization, can we self-fund it and still be considered an adult ed approved program?
Well, yes, there are lots of adult education programs that are offered throughout the state that are not funded by the department. They don't have to be approved per se. They offer the different services, and they many of them we actually know about and would potentially refer people to as options, but they're not what we would call adult department funded programs. So there's no necessarily approval process per se, except for those programs that are ADP programs. Those programs do have connection with the Department of Education, and they would be considered ADP programs, whether they were funded by us or not. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it looks like my follow-up question was actually typed in by someone else.
Okay, how do they report completions and diplomas, and how are those completions reconciled with DESE reporting? So in the past, we have allowed or been able to offer programs that are not in our system to record their data using our what we used to call SMART, but now it's LACES. So I think if there's a need to be a part of our system for recording data purposes, we could discuss that for individual programs and so forth. I think how diplomas and completions get reported, we could talk about that more offline because it's very unique and not one thing is like applies to everyone. So every student who gets a high school credential is recorded in the state. So whether they're in an adult education program or not, their credential is recorded. Now, you may be thinking or wondering, how does your district get credit for those? And that's a different conversation. But those diplomas do get recorded, and I think we could have a conversation offline to better answer that specific detail. You're welcome, thank you. Any other questions about fund use? You can contact me to discuss those questions, and we will probably get someone else involved. So Mike Pharma is our head of high school equivalency, and he works with a team of people here at the department who help answer those questions about and work with others in our department about how to support programs and districts. All right, so we'll continue on. If there's more questions, please just type them into the chat. So the project duration for these grant funds is upon approval. So the grant is out now. Their applications are due September 10th. Upon approval, then of your award, the first amount of dollars will go until June 30th, 2022. We also have the option of using federal funds for this. However, I am currently aware that we will be primarily using state funds for this grant at this time. Grants may be conditionally renewable for an additional year, subject to satisfactory performance in the adult education appropriation for state and federal funds. So as long as we have line money in our state and or federal lines that cover these dollars, this grant will be for FY22, and what we would say also an additional continuation year, FY23. All right, so inquiries, we had a mailbox posted on our website that unfortunately was closed, as we have changed a lot of our systems internally. So we will be posting a new link for you to ask your questions if you have any after today. We will be taking questions through August the 24th. And then we will answer all those questions on our website as we get them. We usually try and post questions that we get each week, but sometimes there's a slight delay if we get a question later in the week. So just stay tuned to the FAQ that will be posted on the website. Again, all the questions that are asked today will be posted on our webpage. Telephone inquiries for assistance. So until we get the mailbox, you can check to see using the number that's listed here when the mailbox is available. Again, we will be posting it on our website and getting the RFP updated with the correct mailbox, hopefully no later than Friday of this week. We said that the proposals are due on September 10th. Proposals must be submitted in the online portal by 3 p.m. On the due date. So everything must be submitted, and that is required to be submitted by 3 p.m. on September 10th. Most of the documents, if you aren't familiar with our online portal, you can upload Word documents, Excel documents, any of your forms or job descriptions or resumes. Anything that we are asking can be uploaded into the drive as a Word document or a PDF. We do ask that I will ask that the budget document be submitted as an Excel document and not as a PDF. There's some functionality that I'll get to with that, but just to kind of get what your interest right now about that. So I'm gonna, there is one question. When would classes be expected to start? So typically with a grant like this that's coming out so late in the year, and we've done this before, we know that we're not going to get your notices of awards out to you until, the end of sometime in October would be really great. So if you are already running a program and you know you can start your class or start a new class in October, that would be great. But the reality may be that some programs may not be able to get their classes up and running until January. So we're going to ask for programs to get up and running as soon as possible. You should plan your first year budget based on when you could get started. If you were awarded the grant in October, when could you start your classes? And if that's different than a full year of funding, then you want to make note of that, what you would need in year one and what you would need in year two, just to anticipate. So we're going to be flexible in regards to when programs can start, and typically we will negotiate the funds accordingly once the applicant was selected for the grant. All right, so keep your questions coming. I will answer them as we go. So required forms, there are lots of required forms that you need to pay attention to. They are all linked in the RFP. You wanna go to our website, really bookmark where this RFP is. It has all the links that you need and any updates. If we change anything or update anything, it will be updated in the RFP itself. Part 1, signature page, standard contract page, pretty straightforward, must be signed by the executive or the lead of the agency. Part 2, the class plan and budget workbook is where you put in or design your class plan, like how many classes you're planning to offer and who, what grade levels those classes would serve. And then you put your budget workbook together, which is basically how you're going to use our funds to provide the services. I'll get a little bit more into that, a little bit more detail a little bit later. Required information, so your narrative, assigned statement of assurances, and assigned GAPA form. The GAPA is a required federal form that where you explain how your program is able to serve and resolve barriers and provide equitable services to a variety of people. There's details and explanations of all these things, so you don't have to memorize this. There are required appendices. So if it says required appendix, that means it needs to be included to complete the application. You want to make sure that you include all parts of requested documents in order to have your best, get your best score and present your best efforts. So I'm not going to read all of these appendices. You can see them. If you have any questions about them, then you can type them into the chat. We do require an audit report. The agency's most recent audit report, usually that is a very thick document. So that's something to note, a PDF of it, or you know, that can be how that can be submitted to the agency. If you have any questions about that, if you're a community-based organization, we can talk about it. It has typically not been a problem, but just to kind of give you, just anticipate things. All right, so where are we at? Additional information that is provided. Again, all the blue things here are links in our in the RFP. So there's a letter from me, the scoring rubric of how the RFP proposal will be scored, and then there's a host of other resources that are related to the different areas that we have that are a part of the proposal. All right, so going to pause now for questions. And there is a question. It says, we are a regional alternative charter school serving disconnected youth up to age 24. We need and want an adult education option for students, but we'd be small, definitely not 50 students. Does that mean we should plan to self-fund given this grant preference for larger programs? No, it doesn't mean that you have to. We will consider grants of lower than 50 if they are, you know, competitive and they provide a rationale, and they're serving a unique need, a unique population, or meeting a need in the area. So it doesn't mean that you shouldn't apply, but it's something to consider. I would say if you were talking about 10 students, that this is probably not that grant, the grant for you. But if it's, you know, 30 or 40, you know, consider it. But we do not give us a limit of who can apply. You can apply no matter how many students you're requesting, but we will be giving priority to those who are serving 50. If a class begins in September, can this class be considered for ABE funding in this round? I'm gonna say yes, and the grant would need to supplement as well what you're already doing. So yes, please, I'm just gonna say the general premise for this and the reason why we are doing this for currently non-funded programs is we are trying to build our capacity within our adult education system. And so we would like to consider a host of innovative practices and things that, and services that meet particular needs. So I would say put it in. And if you're funded and your grant is funded, if there are any particular things that we would say yes or no to, you could be approved, but we would negotiate if there were things that we would say, not this part or this part. So, but I would say yes. Another question is, our organizational budget is under the threshold for an audit. Would a recent 990 suffice? You're getting into terms. I'm going to leave this question for to be answered as when we post them, because I don't know what a 990 is, but someone from our audit and compliance office will, and we'll get that answer to you. All right, so I don't see any other questions right now. Keep them coming as we continue on. Proposal submissions. Proposals must be submitted electronically, 3 p.m., September 10th. The portal is there. So you can go in, create an account. You can see it now. There are some directions on what you need to do in order to create an account. So please note that the Part 2 budget is an Excel document for PC. Please do not work on this in Excel for Mac or Google Docs. I will say that it actually makes some of the things a little snarky. So it's best if you work on it in a PC environment, as well as submit it using as a live Excel document as opposed to a PDF. All right, so there's the contact person. If you have any technical difficulties with anything related to your online submission, Paula Jurigian is our LISHAB expert, and she will help you navigate those things, so you can email her. We are asking for the narrative, the Part 3 narrative, to be no more than 20 pages. There's some specification, Arial font, 1-inch margins on all sides. Pages that exceed the 20 pages will not be reviewed or scored. Required forms, appendices, and the class budget and plan workbook are not included in the page limits. So if 20 pages seems like a lot, then pages, then you may be able to do it concisely in shorter amount of pages. If it seems like too little, then you will have to streamline and pick out your best work to present. Awarded recipients, this is where we get into the administrative costs that I've talked about earlier. We will negotiate those for all awarded recipients after the bid process. DESE reserves the right to conduct an interview or a site visit prior to the award. So upon occasion, prior to the award, we have set up interviews with teams to discuss particular things and or do a site visit to see what the facilities look like. All right. Any questions? Not yet. Okay. For the interest of time, I'm going to keep going. So part 3 narrative. What are you going to be sending us, responding to, and what are we going to be scoring? So this is part of it. We want to know what services you're proposing in the application. These are all the services that are funded in this proposal. So you can choose which types of services you are looking to bid on. The proposal is worth 100 points in its entirety. The points are divided up by sections. Part 1, which is your program data and your past effectiveness data, is worth a total of 10 points. The program budget is worth 5 points. And then the part 3, the response to the narrative questions, is worth a total of 85 points. So there are 7 sections of the narrative, and each of those sections has a point value. You could assume that if the section is worth more points, then it has a, it is very important and would need to have a great amount of detail, even though I will say that every section of this proposal is important. Our scoring rubric, this is how we will be scoring proposals. So part 1 may not exceed 2 pages, and that's the information. So part 1 is the information about program data. So that's 10 points, that's important, 2 pages for that. And then the part 3, the 85 points, is 18 pages for a total of 20 pages. Okay, I will say that if you if part 1 is only 1 page and you want to use the other 19 for part 3, that's fair. But the total program thing must not go over 20 pages, and part 1 may not exceed 2 pages. All right. So 5-point questions, 10-point questions, 15-point questions will be rated. There is a range for some in the acceptable and the strong, as well as the weak. So you could be given a 7 on a 15-point question. The team would decide, the review team, based on the response. Okay, any questions about what we've talked about so far? Okay. Program data, this is the information around part 1. This is only programs that can demonstrate past ESOL and or ABE services in at least one of the following fiscal years. So you must have served an ESOL population or ABE population in either FY19, FY20, and or FY21 to be eligible to apply. And from you may have served students in all of those years, so you could use any data that you have on the effectiveness of your program. So you'll complete the past effectiveness chart, which is Appendix A, to summarize the agency's your past experience. You'll provide analysis of the data that you're providing and address strategies for improving. So it's not only reporting the numbers, but it's also analyzing the data and describing what support and additional outcomes or accomplishments have been accomplished by your program that aren't included in the data or in the numbers. Program design, that section, is pretty straightforward, self-explanatory. I'm not going to read all of this. I will pause at the end of this section and answer any of the questions that you have about any particular section of the narrative. Equitable access describes how your program is providing equitable access to individuals most in need of services, how you create an environment that's welcoming and inclusive to students. So that's our equitable access section. You will see that these have links of how each of these section areas align to the WIOA considerations and our indicators of program quality. So these are things that we pay attention to all year long. Career pathways collaboration is a very much a part of WIOA and helping students to move from education to career and employment, if that is their goal. Curriculum and instruction and assessment. This section is worth 20 points. Very important, to describe your curriculum. If you don't have curriculum already, then there is, I think, a question in here that says how it will be aligned. So if your curriculum or whatever you're using now isn't aligned, then we're looking to for you to talk to how it will be aligned or how you will bring it into alignment with these standards. Advising and student support services. Another section that we are looking for you to respond to, and how we will help students meet their goals, reach their outcomes, and what kind of supports are being provided by the program. These supports may be provided directly by the program or by other relationships that the agency has, partnerships and so forth. So both are acceptable. Organizational support and educational leadership. This is where we're looking to see that the adult education provider program has the support from its agency, the agency that you're representing, and that while the adult education may be a small part of a larger agency, that it is well supported. They have leadership that can guide it and is responsive to both the needs of the staff and the students, so that we are looking to find programs that are I can't think of the word, ongoing, that, there are strong organizations and, have support to continue and to host an adult education program. Fiscal and data accountability. This is where you'll talk about how or what supports the program and agency have as regards to fiscal financial oversight of grant funds, as well as how data is collected and entered, and what policies, procedures, and things are in place to make sure compliance and that the program is accountable for all the information and outcomes for the students, so that you're good stewards of the grant. All right. So that ends the section on the narrative portion of the grant. I will pause here and I will take questions over. You can unmute yourself and ask questions out loud about any of the sections or any questions you might have about a specific part of the RFP. All right, I don't see any new questions. Either I am doing a really, really good job, or this is so confusing that you don't even know what to ask. So hopefully it's not the latter. So this is our last section of for this presentation, and it is about the class plan and budget workbook. And this is not included in your page limits. That's a separate part. You will put down your proposed expenditures. The expenditures must be allowable and reasonable. You can find out more detail about what's allowable and reasonable from our policies. And it has links to federal and state guidance in regards to allowable costs. And that is it. I have officially covered everything in our grant, in our proposal. And we don't have, so there's nothing else that I have for you. So I am here, as well as I have some people on the team who can answer any questions that you may have, if you have any. Otherwise, I will thank you for being at our bidders conference today. And I look forward to receiving a host of applications for this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Good question. Students.
I'm still recording. If there are questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Okay. Actually, I have a question.
Yes.
Trish Kennedy. In regards to the eligibility of students for the program, does the citizenship status of a student affect their eligibility to enter the program?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Feel free to log off if you don't have any questions. This is being recorded, so, and all questions that are asked will be posted to our website. All right, thank you for your time. Have a good day.